Okay, I've just started recording. This is the AdoptOpenJDK Infrastructure call for the first one we've had for a while, so it's effectively going to be a kickoff meeting for those who join, because I don't think anybody, possible exception of Shelley, has joined any of the infrastructure calls previously. We haven't had one for a while. So if you object to this being recorded, disconnect now. So, I think it's probably better if we go around and just introduce ourselves. I think hopefully everyone has put their names in the Google Doc. I think Joe hasn't yet, but Joe hasn't joined or managed to get in yet. So I'm Stuart. I work in Hersley. I'm not officially part of the IBM infrastructure team, but I work for IBM along with a group of 3 of the guys here that do work in the infrastructure team. They're busy with other things at the moment, I believe. Shelley, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Shelley, and I work out of Ottawa, mainly on testing, but we have a lot of demands of the infrastructure team and probably cause a lot of grumbling sometimes from the infrastructure team because we exercise the machines regularly with a lot of different tests.
Yep. Connor?
Yeah, so I do infrastructure here in Markham for the OpenJ9, and that's pretty much it. Some DevOps stuff too.
Yep. Mike? Are you saying anything, Mike? You might be on mute. We can't hear you at the moment.
Unmute. Lovely.
That's better. That's better.
Sorry. So I'm the global infrastructure lead for IBM Runtime Technologies. Joe works for me. Connor works for me, or has been for almost a month now. And basically, historically, I've been responsible for all the build and test hardware, at least for Java, within runtimes. The team has been very, very busy with that. We've staffed up a bit with Connor, and a couple of people we're recruiting in the UK now, wanting to get far more involved in the open communities, including this one and in OpenJ9.
Sounds good. Irina, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm the project manager for Java Next, and I'm also a JIT manager.
Okay, I think, yeah, everyone apart from me is in Canada. So. And yeah, we're all IBMers in this particular case. I don't get anyone outside the IBM organization. Okay, so...
Has Joe said his bit?
Joe isn't on here as far as I can see.
I see his face. Right, he's here.
Is he? Oh, okay. Fair. Ah, yes.
I'm here.
Okay.
Hi, I'm
on you go, Joe.
I'm I work out of Ottawa, and I perform a lot of the RELEng and recently infrastructure stuff for the OpenJ9 team, both internal and externally.
Cool, thank you. Right, so now introductions. There's a few of you, I think, that are looking to start getting involved in some of the infrastructure things at Adopt. Joe, I know you've done some things for us already. Shelley's obviously been involved in it a little bit as well. So what we've got at obviously we have the infrastructure repository. It's github.com/adoptopenjdk/openjdk infrastructure. And that's where all requests come in from Shelley's team and from the build teams and so on. So there's various things that we have different tags that we use in that. Some of the ones, if you're looking to get involved in things, we've got help wanted and good first issue tags, which I think are reasonably standard ones that GitHub use. So they're good if you're just trying to get into it. They will hopefully be ones that are relatively easy to pick up and possibly get to grips with. There's important sort of critical tag as well, which is one that we kind of would like to be done as a priority for anyone that's involved in the infrastructure organization. At the moment, just to go through some of the bits of things that we have for maintaining the infrastructure, we have an Ansible tower setup. So that is what is used to configure all the machines from scratch. All the machines are defined in there. The Ansible scripts and the playbooks are hosted within that GitHub repository that I mentioned, the OpenJDK Infra one. And so we use that for doing all the initial setup. At the moment, the scripts aren't run on a regular basis, so they're just run as when we need them. That is something we plan to change at one point. Most of the Ansible playbooks are in reasonable condition, with the exception at the moment of the Windows ones, which aren't quite fully up to scratch, and there's still some manual work that needs to be done for anyone that uses those playbooks. George Adams has been making some changes to the Windows ones to try and make them a bit better, so hopefully they will be heading towards getting into a better state now. Within the AdoptOpenJDK GitHub area, there is also a secrets repository. Now that is a very restricted access repository, and it contains some of the passwords for the machines and so on. For most work, you don't need any of the passwords, which I'll come back to the reasons for that in a second. But that's there, and yeah, there's only about 5 people or so that have access to that at present. GitHub I've mentioned. Keybox is what we use to allow people to get access to the machines. So we've got a keybox set up that holds people's SSH keys and is responsible for distributing them onto the machines, whether that's the Jenkins user or the root user on that machine. So basically you submit your SSH public key in, and it will distribute it onto all the machines, the Unix machines at least, so that people in the infrastructure team can get into those as root and do maintenance on them and so on. So that's why you don't normally need the passwords to get into it, the exception being the Windows boxes, which we don't have SSH set up on. In terms of actually running builds and everything else, it's all done through Jenkins. So we've got ci.adoptopenjdk.net, CI obviously continuous integration, and that runs all the builds, all the testing and everything else. We have a second instance of Jenkins at ci-jck, and that's used for running the JCK test suites. And because that is, again, something that we have to restrict the access to, that's not as open as the other one. The main ci.adoptopenjdk, anyone can connect to that, can look at the jobs, the logs, and everything else. The JCK one is very locked down. Other than that, we have obviously the Slack instance, which I think you're all in. So there's a hash infrastructure channel on the AdoptOpenJDK Slack, and that's where a lot of the discussions take place. Anything that isn't in GitHub will be generally discussed there. We do also have a private infrastructure channel, but that doesn't really get much in the way of access. There's not that much that gets discussed there. So if there's anything that can't really be discussed in the open, we will restrict there. Okay, so is there any questions about what machines and so on that we have out there?
So you had pointed me, Stuart, and it might not hurt to maybe repeat that in the link in this Google Doc. You had pointed me at links that show us what machines are where, for example. I think it might be useful to have that here so everybody can find it.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. I didn't realize I hadn't included that. So, yep, I will get that added. That's within the infrastructure repository. Again, it's the one that Ansible makes use of as well. So it's it's in a format that's consumable by that.
We have some questions here around. Let me just see. I have a list of questions.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, who are the admins, right, or committers? So Jenkins admins, who has admin privileges in the Jenkins instances, basically who has commit rights, et cetera, because as people in my team, both here and in the UK, have attempted to get involved in this stuff, they have a few times stumbled across that. You know, they don't have permission to do this, they don't have the rights to do that, et cetera. So how do we find out who has those, and how would we put people forward as potential committers or potential Jenkins admins?
In general, to put people forward, it would be raise an issue in the infrastructure,
okay.
The infrastructure GitHub organization. The lists of it, they should be within the top level README on the infrastructure repository, the list of people that are certainly in the, I think the Jenkins ones are listed there as well.
Yeah, that's all documented at the repo.
Yeah.
In the README, Shelley?
Or if not in the README.
If you go to the
yeah,
OpenJDK infrastructure repo and follow along, you'll see the members in the readme.md file, and then it'll link you to the machine information inventory YAML file. So that's your starting point for a lot of that stuff, I think.
Okay,
Yeah,
I will
correct.
check that out.
Yeah, I mean, the top level for the whole project in general, the AdoptOpenJDK project, there's a TSC repository. It's a technical steering committee. It's kind of in a bit the early stages, but that's got jumping. It's like a jumping off point to everything else, the README at the top level of that. And that includes a link to the infrastructure one that Shelley was just talking about.
Okay,
so if you want
so
yep.
how do I get added to that team? I didn't realize there was a specific team. Like, I've been contributing to this since like November last year.
And it doesn't seem to have caused you a problem. So,
well, actually, at one point I had the ability to merge, and that was taken. So,
right, okay, yeah, I think the if you wanted to be part of that team, it would be a case of raise an issue in the infrastructure repository, and the people that are currently in it will discuss it, and so put yourself forward for nomination effectively.
Okay, Joe, you and I can work on building the case for that, all right?
Yep.
We're talking later today.
Yep, that's fine. That seems reasonable because I know Joe's done quite a bit of work on it, so hopefully that wouldn't be too much of a problem.
Okay. So I just have a list of questions, so
Yep,
I'm just going to run through my questions in the absence of anyone else speaking up. Let me know if I'm dominating things too much.
That's fine. You've got until 1:30 anyway, haven't you? So.
No, I've actually rescheduled.
Oh, you go on. Okay, fair enough. Yep. Okay.
So I understand there's a Nagios instance there.
Yes, I'd forgotten about that. There is. I haven't actually done much on it myself, but yes, we do have one.
Is it up and running? Are we including new machines as they're added in it, et cetera, et cetera?
I believe so, yes. There may be a couple of the recent ones that have just been created that aren't in there yet. But as far as I know, that is there. That's something I need to actually get more up to speed on myself.
Could you put a link to that in the Google Doc, please, Stuart?
Yeah, sure. I think, I haven't got links to any of the other systems that I mentioned in there, but I can change them all into hyperlinks and add the Nagios server.
Yeah, it'd be a bit of a one-stop shopping, or perhaps it could go on the README.
I think the README's probably already got it. It's got links to most of the things. And if it's not in the README, that should really be the master place for it.
Right. And the README does need updates. I think you and I discussed that over Slack privately recently.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, next question.
Let me just see. I may have covered my questions. One thing I did want to touch upon, I just wanted to talk a little bit about one of the ways that my infrastructure team and Shelley's test team and others within IBM, and particularly within runtimes, one of our goals is to kind of harmonize infrastructure that is used to build OpenJDK with OpenJ9 across the multiple sites where it is built, and that one of those places is AdoptOpenJDK, another is Eclipse OpenJ9, and then of course we do some building and testing inside. And one of our goals is to, as much as possible, rather than having 3 separate systems for doing this, to have 3 separate instances of the same system, right? And so we want to leverage artifacts and assets in one place in other places. So for example, we currently consume Ansible playbooks from Adopt and use them inside. We do find that sometimes there are conflicts. So for example, some of them explicit, some of them not so much. So sometimes somebody will change a playbook at Adopt, and that will break something inside. That's one of the reasons we asked about commit rights. And the other thing we found is that sometimes, there's a version of GCC that's wanted in one of the places that is different from what we want inside, say, or in other places. So we need to, one of the reasons I'm starting to get more involved in this now is to try and further enable that level of harmonization across all the places where we have our fingers.
So in terms of the GCC versions in particular, are you having to install versions that are different from those supplied with the operating system default package repositories? And if so, where are you getting them from?
Joe can answer that better than I can. Please, Joe.
Yes, we're compiling them from source in some cases.
Right, okay.
And although that's going forward as the product teams are able to support as the dev teams are able to support the newer compiler versions to get around some of the security problems,
Yep.
We're going to have to do that anyway, unless the default repos for each operating system will install like the newer GCCs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I understand that.
All Mars on 7.2 or 7.3, so the VM's not too far behind it.
But presumably in those situations, you're putting the new version in a different location on the machine, so it wouldn't be the default GCC in user bin.
Actually, we just point user bin at the correct version. That is not the best way of doing it. It should be source managed, where the source should point at the compiler we want.
Yeah, absolutely, because that way you shouldn't get the conflicts that Mike's talking about, hopefully.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
I think there's just as many people on the other side of the fence, though, saying, no, we just want to call the default one. So it's...
and this is one of the reasons, as I said, I'm trying to get myself and my team more involved, is to figure out how we can play nicely with others while still, serving our own needs, right?
Yep, sure.
And in a perfect world, other people involved in Adopt would be using some of those playbooks as well.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, for the purposes of Adopt, obviously, the default ones that we have are suitable for building, the source code from our repositories. So, yeah, I think we should probably discuss that amongst ourselves on a different call, probably. Is exactly to move that particular thing forward, because it is an IBM specific thing, because we're building extra things. Is the changing of the default user bin GCC, is that done on the OpenJ9 systems as well?
Yes.
Right, okay. So we've got that problem in the open already. Okay, yeah, we'll need to think about what the right thing is to do for that going forwards.
Right. I think there's just been a lack of urgency in resolving that issue. So
absolutely.
Basically, we just went with the quickest fix to get things going.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It's fine. Okay, did you want to continue, Mike? Anything else on that topic?
I've covered all of my notes that I scratched together over the last couple of days in preparation for this. I guess what I'd like to do, for those of you that aren't aware, Joe is a team lead. So on his team, he has Adam Brusso and Violetta Seba. They are also active in the community. But I think my goal moving forward is perhaps to have everybody on my team in the near future pick up an issue from Adopt and start working on it, just to start getting our feet wet.
Yep. That's the best thing to do, is just kind of get involved and so on, because obviously the more things that people have done within the community, the better your chances are of being integrated into or accepted into the infrastructure team officially with commit rights and so on. Hi, Martin. I see you've joined us now.
Yep. Sorry, I'm usually late.
Yeah, that's no problem. I was just obviously we've got quite a few relatively new people on the team. I think Martin, for those of you who don't know, is actually, do you want to introduce yourself? That's probably a better idea.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Martin. I run the London Java user group, and this Adopt build farm is probably partly my fault. So I help herd the cats, basically.
Exactly. So everyone else we have on the call, Martin, just for your information, is an IBMer. I'm the only one in Hursley. Everyone else is over in Canada. So they're all part of, more or less all part of Mike Leapy's team, who's the manager over there. And Shelley, you obviously know, and Irina is one of our project managers.
Yes, our most demanding user is Shelley.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hi.
Keeps us on our toes.
I have more demands. That's why.
I would expect no less from you.
So Stuart, sorry, Shelley, were you going to say something? I'll take that as a no.
Or she's on mute, one of the two.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't hear the question. Things cut out.
Sorry, I was just asking, because your name did show up here on my screen, I was asking if there's something that you were going to say before I say something further.
Yeah, I assume at some point today we'll go look at the issue list and maybe point out the top 3 in priority order, but that can happen after you're done.
That was exactly what I was going to say. You know, as I'd said that I want my people to start picking up pieces of work in Adopt infrastructure. You know, to get started on that, it would be good to know what are the highest priority things. I do see that there are some marked as critical, and some of those haven't been updated for quite a while.
Yeah, most of the ones I think that have been had critical added, I think I've added them at one time or another, and they're the ones that probably should be attacked as soon as possible. Shelley may have 1 or 2 outside that. Hopefully the critical list is the ones that we would like to get resolved as soon as possible for one reason or another. There's also obviously the bug tag, which is, that's obviously some sort of bug, but it's not necessarily critical that it's fixed immediately.
So Martin, as chief cat herder, if you could have 3 to 5 of these things resolved in short order, which would they be?
So I guess my strategic concern is that we've had to do a fair amount of manual patching of servers without having the discipline of going back and ensuring that the Ansible scripts are up to date and are being run regularly.
Yep.
So I would argue anything that has, so for example, there's an issue here which is missing Windows dependency that needs to be added to Ansible.
Yep.
So that would be a classic one.
I think there's a good 3 or 4, I think.
In that category, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And then I believe that's actually primarily the kind of the greatest concern. And then we have a few we have quite a number of one-off issues. So, for example, a Z390 machine can't perform FTP for some reason. One of the Mac machines can't do one particular thing, which is blocking a builds. So there really is just a lot of one-off items, which is actually blocking builds from completing. But I wouldn't say there's anything that's systematically concerning except for this Ansible issue.
Yeah, there's another one around, again, one-off, well, not quite one-off, but it's a recurring issue on AIX where the RAM drive fills itself up despite not really being filled up. And the resolution to it is always just to issue umount/RAM disk 0, which bizarrely fails because the file system is still in use, but that seems to recover all the space that was left, which is a bit bizarre, but needs someone to investigate it. Otherwise, I have to clear it out every so often. I haven't quite got to the stage of producing a cron job that just runs umount every so often, but yeah, unless that's tackled soon, I may well end up doing that.
Okay, now, so Martin, I assume that there are issues for each of these things.
There are, yes.
Yeah.
So we have about 50 open issues at the moment. We do our best to label the ones that are Ansible related, for example, with Ansible.
Right.
And as Stuart mentioned before, he's also labeled certain ones critical and other ones bug, and several of the others will have the specific platform like Windows as a label. So hopefully, hopefully we've done a reasonable job there. And I'm not sure at this stage if there are other priorities that Shelley might have from the sort of testing infrastructure side of things. That's something I haven't quite kept up to date with.
Yeah, one of the ones I think that is the highest priority from a test perspective is making sure the Windows machines are configured with everything they need to be configured with. We are noticing that they're not configured in the same way as the machines at Eclipse OpenJ9, for example. And I believe you have failing Windows builds because of some things missing from the Windows machines at Adopt.
I think that is the case at the moment. I think I've raised an issue at OpenJ9
so being able to
understand what that is, and then it's a case of something has changed in the last month or so that's made them break, and we haven't got that updated in our system because we haven't been made aware of it really. So yeah, you're right. The configuration differences between us and OpenJ9 is obviously something we've discussed earlier in this call.
And, and now that might get rectified by just rerunning the Ansible scripts. I have no idea.
No, not on Windows it won't.
Okay, all right.
And yeah, in fact, as Joe suggests there, even if it was, it wouldn't have those things in it at the moment.
And
We're
these things,
basically doing two different platforms, right? Because we're exercising a different code path within OpenJDK. We're at OpenJ9 external, they're connecting to the Windows machines through SSH, whereas I believe the one
Yes, yeah, in
at
fact,
Adopt are
yeah.
JNLP.
Yeah, yes, that's a good point. Actually, you can't just run the Ansible playbooks anyway at the moment.
So even if they were identical systems, the connection type to Jenkins is different. Therefore, the code path is different. So,
and it's but OpenJ9 is okay on the Windows machines, but Adopt is not. Is that correct, Shelley?
That's correct. Yeah. So the OpenJ9 ones have got all the things they need.
Right, and the side effect of this for the test team is that now we have a whole other slew of test scripts just to be able to run tests on the Windows machines at Adopt. We don't want to continue supporting those scripts if we can get the.
Yep. So Shelley, can you, if you haven't already got that documented in issue, can you create one for it just to kind of to see if there's anything we can do on that and fresh it out?
Yeah, there was an old one. I may close the old one and refresh with a new one because it was from a while back. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So that's something else
That
we
would
can
be
work on.
great. Thank you.
Okay, just I wanted to run through a few other things that I had in the agenda just to kind of make people aware of it, since obviously quite a few new people looking at this. We are currently looking at moving the build infrastructure to be building on Red Hat 6 or 7. The reason for that is to make it build with the earlier versions of libraries, libc and so on Linux, rather than the Ubuntu 16.04, which we've been doing historically, and that stops it from actually running the binaries that we produce on the earlier versions of Red Hat and other distributions. So that's currently in progress. We've got some of them moved over, but not all of them as yet for one reason or another. So that's an infrastructure thing in progress. We're fairly limited on the number of AIX machines we have at present. That is still being discussed in various places. Shelley has we didn't actually have any test machines dedicated to AIX, but what we've done is we've given Shelley some time on one of the build boxes, so she's running the AIX tests at the weekend on those, so they're not run as regularly, but we have that now. We also don't have any AIX machines for running the JCK tests on, so they are not being run. So the JCK isn't being run on AIX at present. We've got a bit of a problem with one of the Z Linux machines. We got it reinstalled recently, and it's come back very, very slow. It's taking several hours instead of about half an hour to run a build, which is a bit of a concern. I have addressed that with Marist. So I just got a pop-up saying the meeting will end in 10 minutes, so I've got plenty of time. Okay, so the Marist slowness. We've got some extra requirements in from J9 at the moment, so we're running extra builds, which has increased the load in the infrastructure as well. They want 32-bit Windows builds. They've got a non-compressed refs build that they have, so large heap size on X Linux, which we're building. And we've also had a request to build both JREs and JDKs. The JRE and JDK, that kind of just pops out anyway, so that isn't an extra load, but it is just something else that might show up that you need to be aware of. So that's kind of the things that I've been thinking about recently as well.
Yeah, and one additional, we've been helping Jabrina get the EV3 dev build and test running. It would be useful probably to have a few more machines with Docker installed on them. I think there is an open issue. Obviously, it's not as critical, but we will be trying to turn on more Docker-based testing. So that's coming, just so you guys are aware.
Yeah, the EV3 stuff is it's cross-compiled from x86, isn't it? It's on x86 box.
And how we're going to be deploying the testing right now is he's created a Docker image that I think you've already put some additional tools on one of the machines for him.
Yes, I did. That's one of the things that's in Martin's list where it hasn't been added to the playbooks as yet. So I deliberately left that item open for that. So yeah, if anyone wants to pick that one up as a sort of good first issue, then yeah, go for it. It's not difficult to do. I just haven't got around to it yet.
Okay. Do you have an issue number on that?
Not on my screen at the moment,
Okay.
but I can send that to you later.
That would be great, or put it in the Google Docs too.
Yep. Okay. Okay, anything else Mike or anyone else wants to bring up?
Not at this time. Nothing particularly on my mind, Stuart. Thanks.
Okay. Irina, is there anything else that's concerning you just now around any of this stuff? Or apart from the fact that there's so much that we've discussed?
No, nothing to add. Thank you, but thanks for asking.
Cool. Well, I'm just going to quickly go through now and just double check the labeling on all of the open issues and close a bunch of old ones. And then hopefully that should leave the issue register in a state where there are labels like good first issue, which is a nice, hopefully relatively easy one to pick up first, or one that's labeled appropriately according to what's going on.
Since it's also side related to infrastructure, I guess you are also aware we have a loaner machine from Packet. We have organized for 2 weeks to be using one of their Skylake machines to run testing on, so that we can work with them to create some documentation around how well the machine performs against certain performance benchmarks and other testing that we do at Adopt. So the hope there is to create some collateral that's a win-win for both Adopt and Packet, and to have a good, strong relationship with Packet, who already donates some machines to Adopt. So that's going well. We're in our second.
Yep, I think that's probably worth mentioning that we do have, we're not just getting our machines from one cloud provider. We have a large number of cloud providers. It must be up to about 10 now, is it, Martin? Is that about right? Something like that. So we've got Packet, SoftLayer, Marist, Joyent, have a couple of them, and various others. If you look at the infrastructure.yaml file, which is the one that I'm going to add into the minutes, that lists all the machines and it has the provider name in them as well. So you will see various different names. Packet, as Shelley said, given us a few machines that we can experiment with different configurations and so on, which has been quite good. Okay, I think that covers everything that I had. Was there anything else you wanted to highlight, Martin, in that list? Are you looking at it just now, or it's all good for now? Okay. Okay, anything else? I think we've got about 5 minutes left of this call, but if we can close it early, I'm perfectly happy with that.
Nothing from me, Stuart.
Yeah,
okay.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Okay,
all right, thanks for hosting.
See you all next week. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.